right, we are back with viewer game analysis, and I'm actually having to re-record a bunch of these because the data got messed up. Lost, deleted, etc. So, sorry for the delay. And in this game, we're going to be having a 1700 versus an 1800 USCF. And let's go ahead and dive right in. Pretty straightforward stuff. To kick things off, we have a classic Queen's Gambit decline. Exchange variation with the Carlsbad structure. Bishop g5, everything is beautiful going so far. Now, from a personal standpoint, when I've played this in the past, I like to choose move orders which provide my opponent the most room to go wrong. The lower your rating, the more important it is with positions like this one. Because in the game, Bishop e7 was played. And though this is not a deal breaker by any means, I believe the most accurate move is knight bd7 because it sets a subtle trap. White goes, oh, free pawn. And if you know this, you know it's not free. Because takes, check, you only have one response, I get it back, and a winning game. That's why in the Carlsbad structure, I do believe 5 knight bd7 is the most accurate move because it sets that subtle trap. You're going to transpose anyway, and some people are like, well, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does, because the more room you give your opponent to go wrong, the better chance you have to win chess games. So bishop e7, e3, and all this is very normal. And h6 is played, which forces white to make a decision with the bishop. Now, let's say c6 is played because it's normal. You need to understand that there are multiple plans in the Carlsbad structure. So, one plan, you can castle queenside and look to throw the kingside pawns. But these positions aren't seen too much at the top level because black also can throw pawns at you, and it becomes a nasty type game. Then we have the classical plan, which we'll describe this one as the Karpov plan. I'm just going to play knight f3, castle, rook b1, and then b4, a4, b5, and that's the minority attack. The two pawns are attacking the 4, where the plan is to trade our a and b for their a and b, and you play against the weak c pawn forever. Long-term positional chess, lots of great example games by, say, look at Karpov when he played this position. Then there is the best plan, statistically and from results standpoint. And that is what I'll consider the Kasparov plan, because he played queen c2, knight ge2 with an idea to eventually play f3 and e4 in nearly all of his games in the structure, and he never lost one in his entire career. That just saying things like that is ridiculous, and he played it a lot. So if you could just hold that position against Kasparov, you should be proud of the game. So now that we got an overview of the plans and the position, we see h6. And now the point of having the bishop on g5 is keeping a watch on the f6 knight. This next move, it's not an error, but I put like a light question mark. It's faded, if you will, because bishop f4 was played. I'd much rather see bishop h4 as it keeps tension. And then we're going to look at the Kasparov plan here. And this is pretty typical where you trade this way. And now to get my e4 plan to work, I need to play f3, but the e3 pawn would be hanging. So you go rook a, e1, f3, and queen f2 supports everything. And white even has ideas to go g4 in this position next. And overall, it's roughly, I'd say 3/10 of a pawn better for white or so, according to the engine. But it's just not a fun position to play for black. I mean, compare bishops, compare attacking prospects. It's pretty one-sided. So coming back to the main game, bishop f4 was played, and we get the general structure. Now, is h3 necessary at the moment? Not really, because the queen is covering h5, but I do understand the point, wanting to preserve the bishop pair. So now with knight h5, bishop h2, a theme commonly seen in the London system. Now this is the next interesting moment after bishop d6 and understanding this dynamic. If the pawn was still on h2, we would want to drop back to g3. Since the pawn's on h2, it's a question of how to handle this, because we no longer have bishop g5. We took that away from ourselves, and black clearly wants to trade. I feel like the best way is to castle, and we're going to play against this dynamic where f3 can be played, and overall I just like the outpost and the overall structure. And of course we're automatically making this threat. Are we? Probably. In some lines. Okay, so now knight e5 was played in the game. And this is subtle because if a move like knight bd7, knight takes f7 could be played, definitely need to be aware of that. But queen c7 was played in the main game. And this is the first move where I began to have a problem with white's play. And this is a lack of structural opening knowledge here. Because if you notice when I went through the 3 plans that are available to you in the Carlsbad structure for white, the castle queenside plan, the minority attack plan with flinging the queenside pawns, or the Kasparov plan with playing for e4, since we've already played h3 and our knight is misplaced, we're never playing for e4 here. So the best route, more than likely, is to try to get these pawns going, but his bishop is holding on to that square. So when I see rook c1, it's a very natural move that you see in a lot of these. Because, oh yeah, he's threatening knight b5, maybe he can get the pieces and stuff. But rook c1 misplaces the piece for the overall plan. Because what's black going to do? He's immediately going to stop knight b5. And after castles, knight bd7, and you kind of pause here with white because you go, well, what is my plan supposed to be? The time has passed. Now black has equalized, and we see it even more clearly after the trades because white has no tension in the position. And here he probably needs to admit wrongdoing and start getting that space properly by going rook b1. The rook's not doing anything on the open file, or half open file, if you will. And then black starts playing against the typical play in this way. I mean, you can see b5, etc. There's a lot of different ways to play against the minority attack, but that's the plan. But queen c2, another natural move, and yet, what is it doing? Nothing much. It's a feel-good move without deep intent. So queen e7. And now here, just because I'm understanding the position and the dynamics of it, b4 is the first move I consider. Because if he decides to take, cool. Queen e7 or queen d6, I'm at least getting the b pawn, and I'm a huge fan of this position for white. We can play this all day long, and I would feel like white has excellent chances to win. But knight a4, it's not forcing anything. And watch how black handles this position quite well. White's not putting pressure on black. So black's going to put pressure on white. Knight e4. You want to trade? Sure, we'll trade. You want to trade queens? That would be great for white. If the queens come off the board, black has no counter chances. And the white bishop is far superior to black's bishop. We'll get our minority attack, we get a great game. Queen g5. Nope. And automatically make a threat here. So king h2, f5. Black's doing good stuff here, looking to attack. You want my bishop? No free bishops. You want to trade? No trades. Oh, you want to stop the attack? No stopping the attack. Clean, straightforward, goes right along with the plan. Now this next move is probably the game loser for white. He plays h takes g5. And the problem with this move is it cracks open the h file, and you're going to see how black jumps on the opportunity to take this open file ASAP. f4 looks weakening and flailing. Check. g4. You go nowhere, sir. And finally, as the minority attack's getting going, it's just too little, too late. And there is some jockeying here. Black should go rook h1, and you have ideas like this, and some lines that white has to watch out for. That's probably the most efficient way. But queen b8. Black is focused on defending on the queen side over here, and kind of shuts things down. I mean, a little bit of a maneuver, and then finally rook h6, accurate. And we probably had a repetition in there, but which white should definitely claim if he had the opportunity. But as soon as rook h1 is played, it's now extremely problematic for white, because white's king is wide open. So white attempts to hold the second rank, but in turn gives up the first, where the game is over here. But queen b3 was played first, and then queen b1, and nothing to it. So overall, not a bad game by both sides. Instructive. Because I would say that white definitely has experience with the Carlsbad structure, but maybe the move h6 threw him off a bit. But generally, when there exists a structure, there's going to be plans that go along with the structure. So the next stage of opening knowledge is knowing the different plans and figuring out what's your threshold for risk-taking with choosing the plans. Like in my books on Chessable, I like to label that moment as a memory marker. Like, once I'm done with the general development, what should I be doing? And like, the engine doesn't hate a move like rook c1, but rook c1 doesn't move forward with, at this point, what I feel is the only plan in the position. So key moments for learning. A little bit of Queen's Gambit decline for you. Thanks for joining in, and if you're enjoying content, you want your game analyzed, you can see right above me here, my information is listed, so you can send games to me. If you want to annotate it or not, that's cool, but yeah, set it in, like and subscribe, support the channel. Thanks.